magnetic existence. And these magnetic existences are radiant. They convey meaning and value in all directions. Therefore, we know why Paracelsus made such a point of certain talismans and things of that nature, because he believed that they had to do with the magnetic field. He was the one, proudly, who first made the use of dew in an effort to gather certain magnetic values from it. He lived in Switzerland, where the dew is very heavy, and he put glass plates out on little stands, and on these glass plates at night, under certain positions of the planets and the moon, he gathered the dew, impregnated with the vibrations of the planetary positions at the time of the exposure. These materials he bottled and labeled exactly as he would an ordinary medication. And he gave these to the sick when an ailment arose that required this type of medication. He therefore developed something that was almost the same as a very high degree of homeopathy, where natural remedies derived directly from nature without conditioning of any kind were suitable to correct certain difficulties which might arise from the depletion of natural resources. And this is the same as almost every other phase of life. Religion, for example. Every building, every church is a living entity. Every bank is a living entity. Every war office is a living entity. These things are not merely buildings. They are embodiments of attitudes. Everything is alive with the quality for which it was created. The war office is tied to war. The bank is tied to banking. But banking is a living fact. It is the banking that is the real living involvement in the so-called story of banking. These things are all alive. And each one of these, as it comes into life, is born with a certain responsibility. We will say that a young person born into a family is born to help to maintain that family, protect it, serve it, and serve with it for the completion and perfection of the community. The same is true of a bank. A bank is part of an organization, part of an entity, part of something created for a purpose. Now, if the bank fulfills this purpose honorably, it is then healthy. If, on the other hand, it decides to make an unreasonable profit, if it decides to sacrifice its integrity for advancement of its own institutional existence, there is trouble. The bank will ultimately go broke. The stock exchange, when it was created to help farmers and merchants to share their goods and make proper and reasonable investments, as they all sat together under a tree in the south end of New York, if this institution had remained a benevolent organization of service, it would be still probably very practical and very useful. But instead of being that, it has now become a structure of misuses and abuses. And the result is it is gradually destroying itself. Now, entities. A republic is an entity. It is a magnetic field. An autocracy is a field. A monarchy is a field. A communistic institution is a field. Every one of these organizations use energy. They use it in 1,000 different ways. Political speeches, harangues on the street corners, battles in the galleries and back roads. Everything is involved. And every one of these energy fields that becomes corrupted in any form or in any way is doomed to disaster. Therefore, our code of honor is not based upon the Mosaic Code alone, although that is a very good one. It is actually based upon use and abuse. There is no possibility of an abuse succeeding. It will seem to succeed for a little while. It will succeed in the same way that an abuse of the body will apparently provide the individual with an opportunity to make very serious mistakes. But in the end, the energy fields pay the bill. Every misuse of life responsibility, use of basic materials, the abuse of forests, the abuse of water, the corruption of air. All these things are paid for in magnetic defects. And we are beginning to recognize them now. We are wondering why some of these strange things happen that have been happening in the last few years. Nuclear fission is a great tragedy, not because it simply offends the peace-loving human being, but because it is a misuse, a violent corruption of energy. It is the use of a divine power to injure other people. Therefore, that which lives by the sword must perish by the sword. So our whole morality is a matter of life energies. It is a matter of gradually bringing all our intemperances into patterns of usefulness and creativeness and constructiveness. It is the gradual victory of friendship over animosity. It takes the stranger out of existence and puts the friend in its place. Everything is part of working towards an harmonious balance of the natural resources of the solar power. Everything can be used to advance the common good, but everything that is used to destroy will be destroyed by its own destructiveness within itself. Now another phase of that is now coming into focus very strongly in the problem of general reformation in human relationships. We have today a problem of marriage, divorce, adoption of children, all these different moral issues. Now we're going to have to finally settle down, and every person will have to decide whether he is going to fulfill his own purposes or whether he is going to obey the laws of nature. If he obeys the laws of nature and understands them, things will be solved. If he keeps on doing as he pleases with no consideration for values or for the rights and purposes of nature, he will be in trouble. Everywhere it is energy that must be properly used. Now we have now considerable emphasis upon the creation of new energy symbols, and this is more or less an interesting phase of our problem. The ancients used all kinds of symbolic designs to indicate energy. They had their pentacles and their signs and their symbols and their images, and in metaphysical thinking and philosophical thinking there was a great emphasis upon meditation and the mantras and mudras of the esoteric doctrine. These are very important. But now comes the question. Meditation is a mood for the distribution of energy. The power of meditation has to do with the use of magnetic energy. Therefore, the problem of meditation is very simple. You say to yourself, I want to develop a higher grade or higher level of integrity. Therefore, through meditation and the dedication to the highest principles that I know, I will achieve a great improvement in character. Now this is very good, proper. It's been followed by sadhus and hermits for ages. It has been followed by early Christian monks for nearly 2,000 years. Therefore, there's nothing wrong in meditation. But someone, out of the smartness of something, decided that by meditation he could also accomplish a certain amount of selfish fortune for himself. I know one individual who taught high disciplines for the sake of improving socially, making a wealthy marriage, increasing in business, dominating other people, and was doing very well with it. One day I got a telephone call from the local hospital. This individual was sick. So he went down. I said, well, what seems to be the trouble? It was a woman. She was in tears. She said, you know, all my life, or for many years, I've taught people to think rich, think happy, think healthy, and I am dying of cancer. Well, that is again a strange kind of poetic justice that seems very cruel. No question about it. But the individual had broken the rules that associate with magnetic energies. The rule of all possession is right use. The use of all esoteric doctrines and disciplines is for the advancement of the common good. And when we start meditating for a fortune or something, we are headed to trouble, because this is contrary to the proper use of magnetic resources. Magnetism is a great field of energy available to all. The price of it is simple. Earn it. You've got to be right, and all the energy of space is available for the right use that you can make of it. And as much as the right use you can understandingly create at the proper time. At the moment the individual becomes selfish or self-centered, the magnetic field of his own body begins to fail. Kilmer pointed out that there is great difference in these matters, and other scientists have noted that where selfishness comes into a religious situation, there's always a disappointment. And where we are selfish in marriage, where we are selfish in relationships, we are destroying the defenses of our own magnetic field. Now actually, there is a certain poeticness in this injustice on these particular problems. The individual who is selfish and abuses the field loses the protection of his own life against the selfishness of others. If he loses his own protection, then the selfishness of others can move in on him. And if he tries to take something from another, he also opens the door for that person or some other person to take something from him. It is reciprocity. Energy is the most important and priceless of all ingredients. It is something that everyone needs and must have. The waste of energy, the abuse of energy, is the abuse of the magnetic fields. The moment they are abused, they fail us. And very often the failure is a kind of poetic justice. It is something that happens that we can't explain. But I think we find it as clearly indicated in the Goethe's line of Faust. It says, how closely fate is linked to virtue, doth never to the fool occur. Had he the wise man's stone, I swear it, the stone had no philosopher. Wherever we have skill, we have knowledge, we have unusual abilities, we have been given good educations, we have been perhaps by good parents advanced in as much morality as possible, and then we go out and immediately sacrifice all that we have gained or has been helped to, we have been helped to have on our own personal selfishness. That means no wise man's stone for us. That means that we will not be able to succeed because we have in a treasonable manner perverted that which was our constructive birthright. So we're here today as part of a world of selfish people. We're here today with everybody trying to get theirs before somebody else takes it away from them. We're here in the presence of governments of questionable integrity, products of questionable value, and also another general factor which we must also face. And that is, we are now nearly 5.5, almost 6 billion disillusioned people. We have not much faith in anything. Every day the newspaper helps us to lose what honesty and faith we might have. We can become finally convinced that we live in a completely corrupt world. Therefore we are bewildered, we are intimidated, we are worried, and very often just simply give up and follow the line of least resistance and go down with the rest. Now this isn't really the way it was intended to be. Actually, the bad news that we have has nothing to do with us unless we're part of the bad program. Now you might say it's nicer to imagine a world in which we could all work together. There's no doubt about it, it'd be much better. But until such time, the individual who is trying to be right has got to be careful that he is not infected by a common disillusionment. He cannot afford to say everything is wrong and mean it. He's got to hold inside of himself a realization that principle is the basic value, and that regardless of what happens in the world, he cannot lose sight of perfecting his own energy resources, because it might just so